hindi na sa taporan niya.
I've just learned that this school will begin to work with teachers of engineering, teachers of technical subjects.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, madam.
Yeah, so what shall we do? Should we wait for some more minutes?
Okay, madam.
Just only 7 students are here. What was the last lesson that we were doing, if you can remember? Can't you remember it?
Language and society, madam.
Language and society, okay. Yeah. Okay, so today we are going to start a new one, that is application of linguistic. Let me share it. Hope now you can see the slide. Okay, can you see the slides? Applied linguistic, application of linguistic, and introduction to applied linguistic. Are these visible?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any idea about this? From these three wordings, applied linguistic, application of linguistics, and introduction to applied linguistics. So using these three terms, we are going to talk about the same thing. So our subject is language and linguistics. So what we are discussing here, they are coming under introduction. We'll go to the topic. Yeah, just study.
Okay, madam.
Oh, sorry. Can I explain you now?
Okay, madam.
Yeah. Applied linguistic. So then when we think about applied linguistic, when we hear the term, when we say the term, these questions should come to you. What is linguistic? What is the relationship between linguistic and applied linguistic? How do they differ? What is applied linguistic? When did applied linguistic develop as an independent area of study? What are the main areas of concern of applied linguistics? What will this course focus on? How is this course organized? Or something similar to that. Do you have answers for these? Sometimes at the exam, there can be a question like, what is the relationship between linguistic and applied linguistic? Or else, what is applied linguistic? First, we'll go to first question. What is linguistic? Okay, study.
Okay, madam.
Okay. What is linguistic? Linguistic is the scientific study of language that you already know. So under linguistic, under the broad area of linguistic, what we are doing is a kind of scientific study of language. The person who is doing this study is called linguist. So linguists do work on specific languages, but their primary goal is to understand the nature of language in general. Okay? Under linguistic, the linguist targets to understand the nature of language in general. There are many languages in the world. Even though the number is very high, there are certain nature of all these languages, the general things. Okay. Then linguistics is primarily concerned with the nature of language and communication. So in other words, we can say linguistic concern. There are broadly three aspects to the study. So under linguistic, there are three broad areas to study. They are actually language form, language meaning, and language use in discursive and communicative context. Okay, what are the three main areas of study under linguistic? Check whether you know the answer.
Form, language meaning, and language use.
Very good. Language form, language meaning, and language use. So these are the broader areas of linguistics. Shall I ask you a question? So out of these three areas, as you think, what is coming under applied linguistics? Yes, what is coming under applied linguistics? Yes, is it a difficult question?
Language use.
Sorry?
Language use.
Language use.
Exactly. Yes, correct. Your answer is correct. So language use is the main focused area under applied linguistics. Okay, that is the point that we wanted to come.
Okay, madam.
Okay, nothing much here. Linguistic deals with the study of particular languages and the search for general properties common to all languages or large groups of languages. Okay, so here also we are talking about the task of linguistics. Okay.
Okay, madam.
Some questions linguist tries to answer. What distinguishes human language from other animal communication system? Okay, so then we humans, we have a language. So there are many languages, human languages. At the same time, animals, they also use a particular language. Okay, so then the linguist, they tries to answer the question, how human language differs from animal language, or else what are the differences between human language and animal language, and then what features are common to all human languages. So there are many human languages. If you take a country like India, within India there are a number of languages, but there are certain common features for all these languages, and linguists, they want to know what those common features are. And then how are the modes of linguistic communication, that means speech, writing, sign language of the deaf, related to each other. Okay, so writing, the language used in writing and language used in speaking, are they same? Are they different? Like that, okay? Sorry.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. How is language related to other types of human behavior? What is language and how it is organized? How is it analyzed? How are its units discovered and tested? And these are also some questions linguist tries to answer. And these may not be questions for you and for me, but they are questions for linguists. Linguists are trying to find answers for these questions. Okay, just have an idea about the branches of linguistics.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So linguistic is at the center. Around it, there are 6 bubbles. You can say pragmatics, phonology, phonetics, morphology, syntax, semantic. Now think for a while and just remind whether we have done these things under this subject. Don't know whether the question I ask is clear to you. Just check your memory and let me know whether we have touched these 6 areas under this subject.
Yes, madam.
Yes, okay. We did them. We did pragmatics, phonology, phonetics, morphology, syntax, semantics, because they are the most important branches of linguistics. Our subject is linguistic, and so these are directly related to it. Okay, read.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam.
Okay. What is interdisciplinary linguistic? You know, interdisciplinary means connected to each other. Intersport means interhouse sport means antar, that means interconnected. Interdisciplinary studies involve two or more academic disciplines which are considered distinct. Distinct means very clear, very apparent. The most common interdisciplinary branches of linguistics are, so actually these are the branches of linguistics which are interconnected. Historical linguistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, ethnolinguistics or anthropological linguistics, computational linguistics, neuro-linguistic, and there can be many more. So these are certain sub-branches of linguistics which are interconnected. So here, wait. Applied linguistic is not there, but you can take applied linguistic also, one of them. Here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 linguistic types like historical linguistic, socio-linguistic, neuro-linguistic. You can add applied linguistic is also there. Now we'll pay our attention to the history of applied linguistics.
Okay, madam.
Okay. So when we pay our attention to the history of applied linguistics, the term applied linguistics is an Anglo-American coinage. Coinage means a word which is produced by Anglo-American. They are the ones who started using the term applied linguistic for the first time. The term applied linguistic was founded first at the University of Edinburgh School of Applied Linguistics in 1956. Okay, so today we are living in 2024, but the term applied linguistic, it was started to be used in 1956. Then at the Center of Applied Linguistics in Washington in 1957. And this is an interesting area actually. So now we are coming to the point little by little.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So what can you understand here? So you can see here from this slide, in England in 1967, there was a particular association established for applied linguistics, and that is called the British Association of Applied Linguistics, BAAL, British Association of Applied Linguistics. And with the following name, so there were purposes of establishing this association: the advancement of education by fostering and promoting by any lawful charitable means, the study of language use, language acquisition, and language teaching, and the fostering of interdisciplinary cooperation in the study. Okay, so they wanted to have some interdisciplinary among these areas. So what are the areas? Language use, language acquisition, and language teaching. It was largely taken for granted in 1960s and 1970s that applied linguistics was about language teaching. Okay, so anyhow, around 1970s. So this was started in 1967, but towards the end of 1970s, applied linguistics was about language teaching. Okay, so the meaning for applied linguistics came as language teaching somewhere in 1970s. Check whether it is clear. So today is telling applied linguistics that the picture which comes to your mind, it should be a language teaching. Is it clear?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, so then if you want to understand what is applied linguistics, that is none other than language teaching. We'll go to the next one.
Yeah, madam.
Okay, madam.
Okay. Applied linguistic entails using what we know about language, about how it is used, and about how it is learned in order to solve some problems in the real world. Okay, so then there are different branches of linguistic, but remember, applied linguistic is very practical because there we are learning, talking about how language is used and how language is learned and how language can be used to solve some problems. So that is the practical aspect of language. Applied linguistic uses language related research in a wide variety of fields. So then I don't know whether you are having a research at the end of your B.Ed program. So then when we pay our attention to the research done by most of the students all over the world, most of these researchers are related to the field of applied linguistics. So these are certain areas related to language acquisition, language teaching, policy, speech therapy, discourse analysis, censorship, workforce communication, media studies, translation, lexicography, forensic linguistic related to crime and all these things, you know. So from this, what you can understand, the branch of applied linguistic, it has expanded a lot today. So sometimes you may not get some idea about forensic linguistic, but based on language, there are crimes. Okay, so there is a branch of that, forensic linguistic. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So then don't worry, we are having 2 more weeks, I suppose. So then from next week on, we're discussing questions.
Okay, madam.
Applied linguistic, AL, not AI. Applied linguistic is the utilization of the knowledge about the nature of language achieved by linguistic research for the improvement of the efficiency of some practical task in which language is a central component. Okay, so that is the definition given by Corder in 1975. So that is his opinion. And we'll see some more.
Okay, madam.
Okay. Applied linguistic is using what we know about the language. A, how it is learned. That is B. And C, how it is used in order to achieve some purpose or solve some problem in the real world. Okay, understand this definition. It's nice actually. Applied linguistic is using what we know about language. Okay, so then we know about language and we use it, and how it is learned and how it is used in the real world. So that is Smith and Celis Mercia. That is in 2002.
Okay, madam.
Okay. The focus of applied linguistics is on trying to resolve language-based problems that people encounter in the real world. There are numerous problems encountered by people all over the world when they are trying to resolve language problems. Whether they be learners, teachers, supervisors, academics, lawyers, service providers, those who need social services, test takers, policy developers, dictionary makers, translators, or a whole range of business clients. Okay, so then whoever it is, when they start using a language, there are certain related problems. Purpose of applied linguistics is to resolve all these problems and address them.
Okay, madam.
Yes. Defining characteristics of applied linguistics. Autonomous means independent. Autonomous, multidisciplinary, and problem solving. Applied linguistics uses and draws on theory from other related fields concerned with language and generates its own theory in order to find solutions to language related problems and issues in the real world. So under applied linguistics, so we are trying our level best to find a method to resolve these solutions. So that is the task of applied linguistics. Practical concerns have an important role in shaping the questions that applied linguistics will address. So basically, you can easily understand when language is practiced, when language is used there are lots of problems encountered. So field of applied linguistics stands there to resolve all these problems. So they resolve these problems through research. Language related problems concern learners, teachers, academic, just like that. So there are language related problems faced by learners, teachers, academics, lawyers, translators, test takers, service providers, and many more.
Okay, madam.
Okay, madam.
Okay. So here on this slide, you can see certain problems related to the field of language. We'll see what they are. Language learning. So then there are many more problems when it comes to language learning. Language teaching. So when the language is being taught to the students, there are lots of problems. And literacy. So you know what literacy? The ability to use the language by learners. And then language contact. Language always get contacted to culture. Okay, so when language and culture mixed, there are problems. Language policy and planning. Okay, so each and every country of the world, they are having language policies and language planning. So some of them are problematic. Language assessment. So even though we teach a language, even though students learn a language, there can be problem related to language assessment. How language are there, and then language and technology. So now we are living in a modern world. So we have to integrate technology with language. So there are problems. And then translation and interpretation. So problems are there. And language pathology. So in all these areas, you simply see lots of problems are there. Okay, problems are there in related to language in all these areas. Okay. Yeah, give me 1 minute. I'll connect this to. Okay. Yeah. Any question here?
Then what is the language pathology?
Pathology. Pathology means So then if it is a disease, how it is determined in Sinhala we call roga vinishay. So identifying what problem is that.
Okay.
Okay, so in language also we use the term pathology. We say path lab, roga vinishay කියන එක. Okay.
Okay, madam.
Okay, so here you can see some sample questions, applied linguistics, address.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So then these are some sample questions. How can we teach languages better? Yes, that is a very huge concern in the area of applied linguistics. How can we teach students languages better? How can we diagnose speech pathologies better? Speech pathologies means problem related to speaking. Uh, then how can we improve the training of translators? How can we develop valid language examinations? So conducting language exam. So that is a part of applied linguistics. Okay, how can we determine the literacy level of a population? What advice can we give the Ministry of Education on proposal to introduce a new teaching method? What advice can we give a defense lawyer on the authenticity of a police transcript of an interview with the suspect? Okay, so it's the application of language linguistic is enormous, and it can be a police report, it can be a police transcript, it can be a proposal given by the Ministry of Education, many more. Let me just make you listen to something else. Yeah, give me 1 minute, because otherwise it will be really tough for you. Yeah. Let me share this and we'll see whether you can see it. Can you see this one?
Yes, madam.
I don't know whether you can hear. When I click, just tell me whether you can hear.
Good afternoon.
Is it clear here? Can you hear it?
Yes, madam.
Okay, අපි බලමු.
It's must say a great pleasure and a great honor to be here and to be back in the language unit where I was very happy 50% of the time, and not here the other 50%. And I'm just going to do something very, very basic. I'm going to try to basic but ambitious.
I will increase the volume so that you can hear it very fast.
I'm going to try and explain what applied linguistics is in 20 minutes. So, what is linguistics? Linguistics studies language, and we can study language at a variety of levels. We can study the sounds, we can study what we could call syntax, the way sentences are put together. We can study the words in the language. We can study the meanings which the words and the syntax together produce. We can study the way that language is used. So, what do we mean when we say, well, what do we mean when we say, have you eaten yet? If we say, have you eaten yet to someone in Sweden, we usually mean, are you hungry? Would you like some lunch? But in China, I understand that this is like saying, where's Björn? Am I right in saying that is like saying nice day, isn't it? Yeah. And finally, we can study discourse, which is looking at whole texts, whole interactions, rather than the individual parts. We can look another way around, and we can say, well, what kind of linguistics is it? Is it comparing different languages? Is it looking at what goes on in your head? Is it looking at what goes on in society, how language functions in different social contexts? Is it looking at how language is developed to how it is? Is it looking at quite a theoretical level at what language could be? And there are a whole range of other possible areas. And in both respects, we can apply this knowledge. So applied linguistics is the engineering of linguistics. It's taking what the science of linguistics has discovered and applying it, I would say. We use the tools of linguistics to solve relatively practical problems. I've got a couple of examples. Sociolinguistics, one could apply in what is called World English studies, because it's very different. The use of English in China and Hong Kong, the use of English in India and Bangladesh are very different. And if we know this, then we can understand better what's going on in our interaction with people from those areas and what our expectations will be. Something that Becky has already worked on is the question of automatization. So we can call this applied psycholinguistics. When we are speaking a language we are very familiar with, we work automatically and quite fast. The less familiar we are with the language, the slower we work. And so that, and there has been quite a lot of quite technical psycholinguistic work on the idea of automatization and speed in language use. Applied linguistics is a lot of things. Nearly all of them studied somewhere in Stockholm. So if I start at the top and think about language technology, here in this department here, speech, music, and hearing.
So in this slide, you can see and you can get an idea how broad the field of applied linguistic is. In the middle, you can see applied linguistic. Around that, there are many more areas.
There's a lot of work on automatic machine production, automatic analysis, automatic reception, of language, so that eventually we will be able to talk to machines and they will be able to answer us in a sensible way in any language we feel we wish to. Related to that, there's a lot of work in different parts, actually, of KTH on computer-assisted language learning. How can we use this knowledge about automatic reception and production of language? How can we use that to teach people languages? And that leads on to what is a very, very big area of applied linguistics, and that is second language acquisition, simply the study of how languages are learned. What are the processes involved in language learning? How does that relate to the environment and to other factors? At the bottom right, I've put educational linguistics, and I've just learned that this school will begin to work with teachers of engineering, teachers of technical subjects, and educational linguistics would look at how does language work in education? How does language work in multilingual education environments? How do we acquire the language of the discipline? Critical discourse analysis looks at texts as discourses and looks at the power relations that may be involved in them, the ways in which they work in constructing attitudes and ideas, perhaps in a concealed way. Language policy, I've sort of said that language policy as Språkrådet deals with it, but actually language policy, of course, is a big issue everywhere in all institutions. What is our, and you, I know, have just produced a language policy, and that's also a piece of applied linguistics. One issue which you're going to hear a lot more about from Maria and Britt-Louise is what I've called situated language practices. That is, how do we use language in different environments? How do we use different languages? Who speaks what language to whom in different environments? How, what sort of texts are produced, and that kind of thing. And an area that is also quite important, but is really the same thing as situated language practices in a way, rhetoric, except that rhetoric asks not what do people do, but what should people do. So in the various contexts that we have studied, what is effective? So in a way, the two are coterminous, but they are whereas this would be descriptive research. This would be, okay, what's the next step? What do we do to teach people how to do this better? Terminology, I think, is mainly dealt with by Terminologicentrum in Sweden. And translation, I don't know that you have translation studies here at KTH. There's a unit at Stockholm University that specializes in it. I'm not going to talk very long about situated language practices because I think that's what Maria and Britt-Louise are going to talk about. Just to say that situated language practices would mean that you look at many different situations, you try to see what people say, what people do, what people write, in what languages, and just try to understand and describe what is really going on. Often, I think, producing very surprising results because there's a lot of folklore. There's a lot of folklore about it, and Britt-Louise was talking earlier about the English language classroom in Sweden and how much Swedish there is in the English language classroom. And these are the kind of things which we find by examining these situations. Situated language practices examines a whole bunch of areas to see what goes on linguistically. Rhetoric then thinks, okay, what could we do to make language use more effective in that area? And there is a body of knowledge about the kind of practices that are effective, but we have to look at each individual field to find out what is in fact effective in that area, and then teach people to do it. And I mean, that's what the world is full of people complaining that engineers can't write. And what they mean is, well, they're quite good at writing, but their writing is not as effective as it should be. I'm going to sort of focus a little bit on second language acquisition. The study of second language acquisition is has become over the last 30 or 40 years, it's now a very well-researched subject about which we know quite a lot. And I can ask some questions, which I could start perhaps in, do I get an arrow? Yes, I get an arrow of sort. I could start up there by thinking, okay, it's easy enough to see how we teach a language. It's not easy, but it's, one thing that's very important is how is it automatized? How can we make people use the language easily and fluently? And what is the difference between knowing the language and having automatized it? What role do individual factors play? We are going to be faced with a group of students who are going to be very different from one another. What types of motivation will, what effect do different types of motivation have on the learning process? What effect do different learning styles have? And this is a very striking feature, I would imagine, of KTH, that the learning styles of engineers will be very different, or they're quite likely to be very different from the learning styles of people in other environments. Skipping my long box at the bottom, I'll go to here. Okay, so now we know about motivation and automatization and so forth. What tasks would be suitable? Would be there's a big element in second language acquisition which has studied different types of learning tasks.
Put it forward little. Okay.
Nurses, LSP, languages for specific purposes. And we need to think about, okay, we want to have teachers who are going to teach languages for specific purposes. What do we need to draw on second language acquisition to give them? And perhaps even more importantly, in the parallel language environment, where people get rung up one afternoon and told, oh, by the way, your course tomorrow morning will be taught in English. That'll be all right, won't it? And this sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Or worse still, oh, by the way, your course tomorrow morning will be in Swedish instead of English. That'll be all right, won't it? Not a phone call I want to get. But second language acquisition, the knowledge that comes from second language acquisition could be very useful in intervening between the phone call and the actual lesson. I'm going to conclude by saying that there is, of course, a lot of research in applied linguistics in Sweden. It's going on in many places in KTH. We've seen that. It's going on at Chalmers, mainly on English and Swedish. At Uppsala and Stockholm universities, there are there is a large amount of activity in the Linguistic departments, whatever the English for that is, in the language departments, French, Italian, and at Uppsala University, there's a fairly well-known group of people who are interested in language policy, who have, I think, been very influential in the formulation of Uppsala University's language policy in the natural sciences. And there's a science education group which has been studying English as a medium, the effects of using English as a medium. And at my own university, again, Nordiska Språk, again, the language departments, English, French, and there's a center for bilingualism.
Okay, so we'll go back to our lesson once again. My purpose was to give you an idea about applied linguistic and just to give you an idea how broad it is. Okay, so this is the play. Sorry, not that. Let me share the slide. Yeah. Okay, now we'll go back. What is the relationship between applied linguistic and other language related discipline? read.
Okay, madam.
Okay. Applied linguistic occupies an intermediary mediating position between language-related disciplines, linguistic, psycholinguistic, and sociolinguistic, and professional practice. So then applied linguistic is among these areas in the center resolving problems. That is the idea. So there are problems related to linguistic, there are problems related to psycholinguistic and sociolinguistic. To resolve all these things, applied linguistic stands. It uses theories, principles from language-related disciplines in order to understand language-related issues and to solve language-related problems. The choice of which disciplines are involved in applied linguistic matters depends on the circumstances. Okay. So then choice of which disciplines are involved in applied linguistic matters depend on the circumstances. So then that depends according to the circumstances. Sometimes applied linguistic is needed when it comes to psycholinguistic. Sometimes sociolinguistic, like that. Okay, and we'll go further. And then another task of applied linguistic is continuing research on languages. Conduct research into professional practice and on the basis of the result develops theory. Okay, so then if there are research done in the field of linguistics, that is coming under applied linguistics. I will show you some of them. Okay, study resource.
Okay, madam.
Okay. Theoretical linguistic, interdisciplinary linguistic, applied linguistic. So there are 3 columns. So you see, under theoretical linguistic, we are talking about, or else we are paying our attention to what? Phonology, morphology, syntax, and structural grammar, semantic, historical linguistic. So theoretical linguistic. So we have touched a great deal of that segment. And under interdisciplinary linguistic, psycholinguistic, you just see the term psycholinguistic. But within the term, there is a combination, a psychology plus linguistic. Sociolinguistic, society, the sociology plus linguistic. Pragmatics, discourse analysis, computational, and corpus linguistic. So they are different branches of linguistic. Some areas may be unknown to you. And then when it comes to applied linguistic to language education, applied linguistics to foreign language education, then translation studies, lexicography. Okay, so then these are the very apparent areas of applied linguistics.
Okay, madam.
Linguistic and applied linguistic. Linguistic is primarily concerned with language in itself and in finding ways of analyzing language and building theories that describe language. Okay, so linguistic means language concern within itself and finding ways of analyzing language and building theories. Applied linguistic is concerned with the role of language in people's lives and problems associated with language use in people's life. So you should have a very clear idea about linguistic and applied linguistic. So applied linguistic is the use of language, use of linguistic. Linguistic is essential, but not the only feeder discipline. Okay, linguistic is important, but that is not the only one which is important. Go to the next one.
Okay, madam.
Linguistic, applied linguistic education. So here you can see there are 3 circles, different circles. One applied linguistic education, another one, and one more linguistic. Okay, so then here we are talking about applied linguistic.
Okay, madam.
Yes. And applied linguistics, the study of the nature, structure, and variation of language. education, teaching, learning, acquisition, assessment. Sociology, the scientific studies of human behavior and the study of society. These are some light terms that you know. Psychology, the science of mind and behavior and the application of such knowledge of various spheres of human activity. Anthropology, the scientific study of the origin and behavior of man. Okay, all these areas are available under applied linguistics. Okay, so that is the simple idea you need to get. You can get it simply, but it is a very complex process. Yeah, just read.
Okay, madam.
Vidovson 2000, in the year 2000, present the question in terms of linguistic, applied, and applied linguistic. So this looks very funny actually. Applied linguistic or a linguistic applied. The differences between these modes of intervention is that in the case of linguistic applied, the assumption is that problem can be reformulated by the direct and unliteral application of concepts and terms deriving from linguistic inquiry itself. Okay, so it's a very heavy one. That is to say, language problems are amenable linguistic solutions. In the case of applied linguistic, intervention is crucially a matter of mediation. Applied linguistic has to relate and reconcile different representations of reality, including that of linguistic, without excluding others. Okay, so if it is very tough, don't toil your brain. So here simply it says the applied linguistic and linguistic applied both are not same actually. Okay, in the case of applied linguistic, intervention is crucially a matter of mediation. Okay, so it's a kind of mediation. Applied linguistics has to relate and reconcile different representation of reality, including that of linguistic without excluding others. Okay, so then the purpose of applied linguistic is to serve for the people to serve and help people to use the language without problem. So that is the task of applied linguistics. Okay, so then when we observe how human beings are using language, we can see they encounter lots of issues. Purpose of applied linguistics is to minimize or resolve these issues. Okay, did you read? Some fields of applied linguistic: language and education, first language education, second language education, foreign language education, clinical linguistic, language testing, and then under language work and the law, workforce communication, language planning, forensic linguistic, language information and effect, literary stylistic, critical discourse analysis, translation and interpretation, information design, lexicography.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So then applied linguistic, yeah, let me see it. Linguistic to foreign language teaching and learning. So then some of the terms you may be familiar with, for an example, call, computer assisted language learning, TOL, technology assisted language learning, like that. Materials development and evaluation, that is coming under applied linguistic. Syllabus design and language curriculum development, I don't know, you may be having another subject as curriculum theory, curriculum design and theory, so that is coming under applied linguistic. Language testing is coming under applied linguistic. Language teaching methods and techniques, you know, student centered, learning centered. Then you might have heard of grammar translation method, audiolingual methods, all are coming under applied linguistic. Language teacher training and education, they are decided in the field of applied linguistic. Research into second and foreign language learning, directly related to applied linguistic. Language education policies and language planning. Sometimes you might have studied language planning. So they are coming under applied linguistic. Educational technology and language learning, immersion education, language education in multilingual setting. Here there are different subtopics. All these things are coming under the broad area applied linguistic.
Okay, madam.
Yeah. So then here the terms may be very much familiar to you. TESOL or TESOL, TEFL, AL. TESOL means teaching English to speakers of other languages. Okay, so they are major applied linguistic organizations. International associations of teachers of English as a foreign language, and then American associations for applied linguistics. So there are some organizations, major bodies for applied linguistics.
Okay, madam.
Yes. So then under applied linguistic, how does one select and organize the content of what is to be taught and learned? What do you teach? So the teachers, they should decide what they are going to teach. For that, the curriculum should be prepared. And to prepare curriculum, the education should be planned. All these processes are there. How does one organize the teaching learning process? Individually, teachers can organize their teaching process. And then there are some language theories they have to consider. How does one develop knowledge and skills? Yeah, wait. Okay, so that is almost the end, but before that, wait. Here. Okay, so our subject is Introduction to Linguistic. Okay, so what we are supposed to study is simply a touch. Okay, that you have to understand. So applied linguistic, one topic is there, but our purpose is to give you a general idea, overview of what applied linguistic is. Okay, so this is just one of the topics in your subject. But do you know there are different subjects called applied linguistic? I myself is teaching a subject in an educational institute, university called applied linguistic. But what I am doing with you is just one topic under linguistic. Okay, so you have to understand the difference. Applied linguistic is the practical use of linguistic knowledge to address real world problems. Application of linguistic, and it addresses the real world problems. It's about taking the theories and findings from the study of language and applying them to solve issues in various fields. Okay, that is the purpose. Okay, let me just show you the syllabus outline. So this is not the detailed syllabus. Okay, can you see here? And just observe them and check whether something is lacking. And if there are certain things which are not clear to you, you can tell me, or else you can put it into chat box.
Okay, madam.
Any area that you want to study further? Are
No,
you
madam.
sure? Oh,
No, ma'am.
okay. So then we started with introduction to language and linguistic, phonetics and phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, language variation and change, language acquisition, language and society, application of linguistic. Okay, so in your question paper also, there will be questions from all these areas. Okay, so then what I thought of doing is we have to go for something just like a revision from next week onwards for 2 weeks. Do you like to start it today itself?
We will do next week, madam.
Yeah, we will do it next week. Then shall we wind up the session for today? Then if necessary, we can carry on further next week.
Okay, madam.
Okay, then, Hari,
Madam. Thank you, madam.
have a nice time.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, madam. Good night.
Okay, good night.